Gary, hi there. It's Martin and Nick, and we're going to do an assessment of Wingate Road. So with this one, we have a 3D walkthrough, and it means that we're able to do a really accurate condition assessment. And I've spoken with the agent, and in principle, they'll accept offers if it's if we've done the assessment and all that stuff. So the plan is we're going to go through the property particulars, go through the 3D walkthrough, just really understand the condition of this property. And then we get into capital growth, crime, demographics, and then it's comparable value, then it's risks, so coal mining, flooding, and then we might have a look at the plot map as well in property data, and then, in fact, we will. And then Martin's going to do comparables based on the kind of the market numbers for both price and rental. And then it's a question of working out what you want to do from there. And along the way, we're going to score everything, which helps you, I hope, and certainly helps us because we can then kind of benchmark on how good various parts of the property are. All right, let's get into it. And I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And there we go. All right, I'm just going to go leaf through the property pictures first. And the first thing I would say about this is this looks like it's a 1960s building, 50s, 60s, that kind of period. And it's cavity wall built, so you can tell by the way the bricks are orientated, which is good. It's got a plasterboard ceilings and interior walls, and then it'll be plaster on brick. Plasterboard's good. It just means it's smooth and easier to work with if it gets damaged and so on. Now this one has, actually, you know what, I'll just leaf through this. We'll go through the 3D thing because that's much more detailed. And trailer, smart Ving, that's what we want to look at. That's a nice looking kitchen. And this is kind of weird. We'll have a look at this in a minute on the 3D. It's the kind of place that just needs a really good, deep clean and a paint and a decorate overall, I would say. Yeah, let's get into,
when I do the condition assessment, I guess around 2,500.
Yeah.
I don't know about boiler and electric.
Well, there we go. There's the outside. It's just very quiet. One thing that's interesting is, if you notice, these are reasonably good cars. Good cars is a good sign. And what it means is that these are people who will have finance on the cars, most likely. So they're creditworthy, and it's just a nice middle class area, basically, which is good. Oh, I should have gone back. Let's just go back. The other thing I just wanted to point out was the brickwork. So these are decent bricks, and I don't know how porous they are, but they're decent bricks. The pointing is in good condition, i.e. the cement between the bricks is all looking good. And this would have a proper damp-proof course. In other words, it would be down here. So where this brick is a bit discolored, that would be the damp. In fact, I think you can actually see,
yeah,
you can see a black mark there, which would be the plastic barrier layer. Anyway, I think it looks like it. That looks like a damp-proof course. And then you've got the air bricks below, giving ventilation to the property. So it's a fundamentally sound property. And here we'll go kitchen first. This just fairly cheap laminate flooring and not especially pleasant, but you know, if you're just buying it to do minimum decoration to rent it back out, then I think you'd probably leave it, because you're not going to gain much from quite a lot of expenditure. And then obviously we've got the conservatory, but let's just have a quick look here first. And quite a lot of pipe work around here. That's okay. I assume that's the boiler cupboard. It looks like it. And a slightly ill-fitting cupboard, but you know, that's a very easy thing to fix, just got to say. It's just a tweak with a screwdriver and you're done. Just to point that out. So this kitchen looks fine to me in turn, you know, in respect to the units being okay and everything. And little dining area, air bricks. This is quite good that there are quite a lot of these air bricks around, I've noticed, and at least that means you've got decent ventilation into the house, which is a good thing. And we have the conservatory, which is now a dump. This so often happens with these conservatories. You know, people put them up in the hope that it's going to be this lovely extra room. And the reality is that it's either too cold in the winter or too hot in the summer, and it's just not terribly pleasant. But you can see it's being used. That carpet's rather dirty. So one would put not carpet in there, I think, really. Okay, let's move into the hallway. No signs of damp. I'm looking for little kind of moldy bits, basically, and I don't see any of that. Storage. And
I think they're moving, so that's why.
yeah, they must be. And so I'm not too concerned about this. This is coving, which probably dates back to either the last big renovation or probably the last big renovation. And it's just stuff you buy in strips and you stick it into the corners, and you can see it's come off here a little bit. Nothing major. It's just basic tidying. Another nice thing about this property, by the way, solid wood doors. That's good. Often you get these pressed kind of plastic doors with cardboard in them, which isn't so pleasant. And we've got the feature wallpaper here. And as you see here, the ceiling is good. It's got wood chip wallpaper on the ceiling. Now, this is a very common feature, but at least it doesn't have textured surfaces. So it's something. And overall, these walls look quite good. It seems to me that what probably happened was that the ceiling was covered in this stuff, maybe in the 70s or something. And the walls were probably too, but they decorated it, stripped all that stuff out. So you're back to nice smooth walls again, which is a good sign. Also, not particularly pleasant laminate flooring, but there you go. All right, so it's a kind of an economy house. Nice to see reasonably pleasant carpet, but just to go back to this, the carpet is quite threadbare. There's underlay here. I need to go back here just to show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, you can see the boards and how everything's just a bit, so yeah, it's just cheap carpet, but it might be worth rescuing. And some relatively badly done decorating on this door. So, you know, this is the kind of, these are little details you take care of when you come and renovate. Another example of details is this. It's a small thing. It costs about £3 to buy. Put a new one in, because that's disgusting. Sorry. Okay, moving on. And what have we got here? We don't have a bath as far as I can see. And we have a shower which needs a really deep clean. It has one of these things here. Now, if you're getting a new boiler, you might get a combi boiler. And I'm going to show you the boiler in the survey. No, I'm not actually, because I don't have a survey. Duh. These are okay. They're not great. All right, moving on. So in here is something. Let's just do it this way. So we'll have a look at the overall floor plan, and that gives us a sense of. Oh,
It's reasonable.
excuse me.
Size.
That gives us a sense of what's going on. How many square meters is this, Martin?
84.
Do you know? 84. Okay, that's not too bad. This I'm not too concerned about. It's just this fitted furniture has obviously been in here for about 25 years or 30 years even. And so what the kind of story I'm getting from this property is that it's probably 1950s, 60s. Have you got it? Do you have a build date on this?
No, that's what I wanted to tell. Like, for this property, I have for number 19, I have for 21.
Okay, well that'll do. What?
Yeah, but
when?
2019 said that it's between 1983, 90s.
No.
And I think it's between, the number 21 is between 50, 66. So
okay.
I think,
yeah,
I
it
think
feels
that,
to me like 1950s. So there is a reason for that. There's a portico, a thing on the front door. It's like a concrete thing, which is a little rain catcher to. Anyway, the point is this. So the story for this house, I think, is that it was built, obviously, and then in about 1970s, I would have said, 70s, 80s, this all of the place was renovated very heavily, and this stuff was put in. And the reason, because this is MDF, and this was only really, they only started really manufacturing this in the 70s. So there you go. Anyway, right, all of this I'm not concerned about. It's just stuff that needs to be painted and decorated. Unpleasant strip light. That really doesn't help the atmosphere. But anyway, this isn't damp, if you're wondering. It's just, actually, it looks to me like the dot and dab. So when plasterboard's fixed onto a ceiling, they would dab it with plaster. They go blop, blop, blop like this and squidge it in. And that's possibly what that is. It's fine. It's just, and you can see here, it's just not, anyway, it needs decorating. It's fine. Now, Martin suggested about £2,500 for decoration so far. Is that right?
But I think more.
Yeah, it does need a bit more, but not much. It's nothing. There's nothing deep. There's no really deep work that needs doing on this. It's just like this room is fine. They stripped out the coving. Maybe there never was coving on this. Now, one thing I don't know is how the double glazing is. Sometimes double glazing, it gets condensation between the two sheets of glass, and you've got to replace it. But it's not a particularly big issue. All right. Overall, this is a tidy house. Let's have a look. Oh, we've got the back. Okay, let's have a look at the back. Lots of painting, decorating going on, lots of painting on that going on. So I assume that they've had a go at just tidying it up a little bit and doing the best they can. But, you know, it needs to be done thoroughly.
Yeah.
And this is kind of interesting. They've moved the back door here from here to here. And that's kind of consistent with my view that it's had a few tranches of renovation. The big one was probably in the 70s. It's a fundamentally okay property. And if we look at the Google Earth and we look at the roof is, I remember seeing the roof somewhere.
Yeah, it's not
certainly I saw it here.
I will. Yeah, like, yeah.
Roof
the
is
roof
good.
Is really,
roof
yeah,
is
really
fine.
good.
Yeah, it's one of these. It's concrete tiles. They're pretty robust. Like, there are no missing tiles, and actually they're quite easy to repair as well, which is a good thing. You can just slot them back in if one of them comes out. So okay, there we are. Now the next thing is Martin's going to talk about location and all of that, but I'm going to go into the demographics. And overall, this is a middle class area. So it's not very rich, but it's not poor either though. And it's a classic kind of suburb. Most people are English speaking. It's kind of middle-aged family area, and quite a lot of social rented, but not so much private rented. Now, this is old data, and everything shifts a little bit, but areas don't change that much.
Yeah, you can see the buildings like a box. That's social houses.
This thing here.
Yeah, but there is no crime, so
there's very little crime. So that's good. Very little crime is a good thing. And we can see here, just to give you some idea, 1 crime a month on average. Now, this is older data from Manchester Met Police Force. They don't share the modern recent data. So what I did was I got 6 months of basically every crime that occurred in Greater Manchester, and then I did a little algorithm so that if it's really bad, it's all like shiny like that. But these areas are very quiet. 4 crimes, so it's just very peaceful here.
Yeah, I will talk about the plot map.
And the next thing is capital growth. Now, this is a big old topic, so I'll take it from the top. I'm not sure, Gary, whether we've gone through this, whether I've gone through this with you before, but I'll explain, roughly speaking. So here we have Sorry if you've seen it all before. If you haven't, good or bad, or whatever. But anyway, right. So this is affordability, house price affordability. It's a good metric because we have good data showing average wages and average house prices going back a long way. And this goes back to 1845. And each peak represents a moment where house prices rose and property became less affordable, relatively speaking. Each arrow represents a peak in a cycle, and arguably this was the peak in this cycle, which happened to be World War I. And we're now in cycle number 9, and the peak is somewhere around here. So that's the first thing. So where are we right now? Well, this is 2008, had the crash. And the thing about property cycles are they vary depending on city and area, and country. So you can say overall there was a crash in 2008, and then there was a steady recovery, but London did the opposite of crash. So it's very important to have quite granular data, and that way you can get a sense of what's going on in that city, in that area. Anyway, this would be the doldrums, and this would be 2016 to 2018, and then we're in the boom phase, and we're about here. So we're probably 25% in. We've got another 3 years, I would say 3-4 years, and then we're going to peak and it's going to crash and it'll carry on like that. So now you understand the property cycle. And one of the crazy things is it's so repetitive. And so if there was just 2 cycles, you might go, 9 cycles. It's weird. All right, this area has been very strong for growth. Now, there are a lot of variables here, but when I look at this, I'm like, well, okay. In the way up, the 2003 to 2008 period was a huge boom period because interest rates dropped and everyone kind of got geared up, and thus there was massive real growth in house prices. It did crash quite heavily between 2008 and 13, quite heavily, in fact, much more so than a lot of other areas, and it's still slightly below the 2021 mark. Now, this is quite important. So it's up to June 21. By now, it's probably around 0. So in other words, if you inflation adjust all the figures, which is what I always do, it's very important, because if you don't inflation adjust the numbers, you would go, well, 2008 was £90,000 median house price, and now it's 121. So it must be making money. No, because you've got to factor in inflation. In other words, think about purchasing power. That £90,000 in 2008 gave you equivalent purchasing power of roughly £120,000 today. And the higher the inflation, the generally speaking, the more people get into property, which is why we're seeing the Manchester market very heavily driven by investors. All right, this is a capital growth star, as it were. There are very few areas as good as this, and I'll show you here. On this one, we see that overall for M38, which is, broader, there are only 7% of areas that are stronger than this. And the way I read this, having read thousands of these things, I feel that it crashed a bit too hard in the past, probably because this was a relatively poor area. There's a lot of social housing here. But the difference this time round is that Manchester is a much richer place. There's much more kind of net immigration into Manchester. It's attracting a lot of capable people. And this time round, I don't think it's going to crash so hard. But the trick, as ever, is to always buy good property without compromises, and then you're in a good place. All right, so that's me. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen. And I will go for the house. As you can see, the roof is okay. This is from 2015. In that period of time, the cars looks okay. The road looks clean and so on. So I will not be worried about it. The neighborhood, because for renting, it's also important the neighborhood properties to be in okay condition at least.
Well, also just to point out, see the people next door.
Yeah, they changed the roof. They add a solar panel, they add this extension to the house. I mean, so they make it better.
What this means is, Gary, that people want to stay here, and that's important. So so Kyle is there. Should we?
Oh, okay, just quick. Maybe
we'll make it 5. So I'll just let Kyle know.
Okay, so basically the location is really nice. It's really close to gas station.
Nice, actually.
Yeah, and it's 24 hours shop, so that's amazing. Like, it's not a large market, but it's not far away from the largest like a shopping mall in Little Hulton. So basically the location is really, really nice. You can go by walking, you can do whatever you want. I know that in this area here, 3-bedroom semi-detached house are selling for 180, 190 even.
Yeah, well, this one's got a bit high because it's a fundamentally decent property in decent condition with a decent roof and no damp and all of those good things. Gary, you may think that's not a big deal. Oh, properties should be dry, but if you're buying terraced houses, roofs and damp are a constant kind of threat, and one just has to be very aware of that.
Yeah, so I want to set, here is the property, and you can see there is no home mining issue. I want to set the 21 and 19, the set that, I think this is not incorrect. I think the house is built between 50, 60, I guess. Maybe, but it's more, it's for sure more than 190, 30s, I guess.
No, it's a relatively modern property.
Yeah.
All right. So
EPC is D. It can be C. It's 84 meters square. So
that should get to EPC C fairly easily if necessary.
I wanted to set. This is social house. This part here and this small houses here. And how we know, we're checking here on the plot map, and you can see that this all of the houses are social houses. So yeah, basically that's it. And on the,
it's probably why the area crashed quite badly in the last cycle. That it was just
the rent should be 800, but I just wanted to see. Yeah, the renovation I said 2,500, but it should be more. So
what are we saying on yield then? So this is around 6%, is it?
Yeah, it's 6% on the asking price.
On the ask, but it's going to go up. This thing. Okay, let's talk about where we go with this on the bid.
I just want to say for sale. And here it is. I will go in US listed, and I will just zoom in. So this is like 160, 160. Let's see.
That's going to go for 10% above the ask, which is at least 180. I would have thought.
No, 180. I think it's a lot.
Do you think? Well, what do you think the right price is for this one? I'm just thinking about the market temperature and how things go, and it feels to me like it's going to go.
I think this is cheaper than others just because it's next to. No, sorry, it's not this location. It's next to ex-social housing, still social housing, and people will avoid this area. Some of them, but I know that we buy a property exactly this one, and it's rented now for 8 or 9. Oh,
I remember that one.
But it just completed, just finished renovation, so, and it's rent for, so I think at least 800, and until you buy it, until you rent it for 850, I think. And
well, just to say, just on the rental and sales and rental demand, it's huge. The competition is unbelievable. You would rent that out in about a day, literally. You put it out, all the viewings booked, and you basically know you're going to get a prime tenant for this property just because.
I think if you buy it for 175, this will be an amazing deal. Just because.
Yeah, but the way it works, Gary, just to explain, when these properties come up, they get put out a little bit on the cheap side. So you think, oh, great, lots of value here. And then what happens is they get a load of people coming in and bidding against each other, which then raises the price, and everyone gets all into a frenzy and all this. So the real price is not the advertised price. And the reason I'm confident about this is because again and again and again, we see surveyors' reports where they do valuations and they're like, well, yeah, you paid whatever the price was way above the ask was a reasonable price. We see it constantly. So the real price for this, that's the number, Martin. What is the real price for this?
I just want to add, here is a new build. Here is a lot of new builds coming in.
It's on the change, this area.
Yeah, this area is like booming. So because it's not far away from Manchester, the prices are cheaper compared. If you want to buy this type of property, if it was in Swinton, will be 230. Yeah. So on this 160 asking. So that's why this area is booming. The quality of the property is really nice. So I think like this property will go up to 180. Maybe 180 is maybe 180 is too much. But if you take it for 175, it will be win-win, because I'm saying
the thing is, what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of rent inflation because of inflation. So as long as interest rates don't go crazy, then you might be stretching yourself today, but when you look back in a year's time, you'd be like, well, my rent's up, the value of the property's up by another 8% or 6, 7, 8% or something like that. Oh, it was a good deal then, even though I stretched myself. So my view is, if you want it, you've got to stretch yourself. And
I think this will be 1.8. I think this property 850 will rent until completion, and everything will be 850 at least. If we ask maybe Leila, she would say 900. So I always give the minimum. So let's say like 850. And if the property we buy it for 175 and
don't say make it 180, because I think 175
I think 180 is too much, a little bit on the end. 177 is okay, because
go 177, see what it looks like, and then let's do a final assessment.
And 500 for 5,000 for renovation. So that's why I don't want 180. So let's say 182 with all renovation it will cost you.
Yeah.
So that will give you 5.6% of yield. Not perfect. Yeah, but
that yield is going to go up, relatively speaking, just because of rent inflation. So we're seeing this in Manchester versus, say, Sheffield, for example. So yields are better in Manchester. People are prepared to pay more in Manchester, and thus, you're going to be in a good place in a year's time with this thing. All right, let's quit screen share and just do a final. All right, so just on the capital growth, it's very strong. I think last market cycle, it was strong back then. It's strong now. But there's a fundamental shift in Manchester, which is the important point. And the whole city is kind of going up. And also there's a huge influx of new people, a lot of Hong Kong Chinese people, for example, who are industrious and who create wealth. And when they do that, then it makes everything, there's more competition for property, and the whole thing is a kind of virtuous cycle. Plus the market, the long-term inflation issues we have and so on. So anyway, I think it's a strong area. It's a nice property. It's well built and just needs a general tidy up. And
it's have extension.
Well, it's got that conservatory. You could probably do better than that, but yeah, the conservatory's there. And I think if you want it, you just got to accept that you got to dive in and bid high. Otherwise, you just no chance. So
yeah, at least you need to send 172.5.
Yeah.
Asking. If not, it will not, because all other properties around are asking price 170. So I don't know why they add lower asking price.
Well, I know it's because they want to get as much competition as possible and get everyone like all frenzied, and then they create basically like an auction. That's how it goes. That's how it works. It's just competition. But anyway, it's a nice little property. But the main point is that when you're dealing with all this stuff, it's best to just go off yields. So if you say, I accept a 5.6 yield, then you know that you're up to 182,000. And if you notice on our messaging, we have this thing now because it just makes it easier for everyone. There's a yield that you work to, and if you're okay with that, that's what you bid up to. But obviously I'm talking to the agents, getting a sense of what's going on. And if I can go in lower, I'll go in lower because I want to make sure that we get the best price for you. But the way I tend to do it is like I can get a good feel for where the price is going. And on this one, it's going to be quite high. All right, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary.
Let us
Thanks.
know.